even before how democracy originated, maybe we should talk a bit about how we as human species originated and became what we have become today. And then probably talking about democracy in that broader context would make some sense. Our biological name is Homo sapiens. Homo is our genus, and sapiens is our species. So Homo sapiens, when they started life, I mean, they're very weak, were not very strong, did not have any weapon, and our hunter-gatherer ancestors had a very difficult time because they had to wait until all the carnivores had left, all the vultures and birds of prey had left, and whatever was left, they could eat only that. And even vegetables, it was very difficult because of any wild berries and things of that sort probably is what our ancestors could consume. But from there, we started slowly making the weapons, and then once with the weapons, we developed the skills even to beat the most fiercest of the animals. The carnivores, we developed techniques to tame them, and slowly we started raising family, doing agriculture, saving our grains and then storing it for next year. And then slowly the process of prosperity started. Some people, some families who were a little more hardworking, a little more wise, probably started accumulating more. Others probably were still working for the ones who had gathered more. Others probably had just enough to live through. As we moved from hunter-gatherer civilization to agricultural civilization, one of the things our ancestors needed was security, because they had already started staying at one place, not wandering around, staying at a home, and then raising family, and then they needed security for everybody. And they had grains that they were storing that also needed security. And then what they started doing was created small governance structure in the villages. Small, very small, tiny villages. Actually, in real sense of the term, they're much smaller than villages that we know of today. Probably this is like, in our popular terminology, we call it toll today. That's probably what they had at the beginning. And then the civilization started becoming bigger, and then when they had enough excess grains or other vegetables, they needed to sell it to somebody else. They also started finding metals, and then metals also needed a market to sell. And what they started doing was creating direct road, and then creating means of transportation to go to another village. So slowly what happened was, as our civilization grew, then we became many more villages coming together. So then the governance of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 villages started becoming one. From there, we gradually evolved. And then states, in the modern sense of term, have started sowing up. Greek civilization, I'm sure you have heard of. Roman civilization, then after, Egyptian civilization, in Asia also, Chinese civilization, Indian civilization, and we are also part of larger Indian civilization. These civilizations started developing. And one of the things that started happening was, then some people became a little too powerful. They needed more money. They wanted to grow their wealth, prosperity. They started attacking others. To attack others, they needed army, and to raise the army, they needed money. Money had to be raised from the people. And then slowly, when kings or the village chiefs or the tribe chiefs started raising more and more money, I would not dwell into. I'll not spend a lot of time there, but we'll directly jump from there to 17th century. Now imagine Britain of 17th century. There was a king, there are people, there are barons, there are aristocrats. Kings used to raise taxes from people, and then slowly trades, merchants, traders, farmers, the big farmers started realizing that they should also have some say in how the country is run. Then they started saying that if you want to raise taxes from us, then we should also have a voice in the government. And then king had to concede that power. That's how parliament came into being. And then the right parliament got was to sanction the budget. King had to send his budget, Budget meaning how much money the king wanted to raise, or how much money he wanted to spend, and on which projects he wanted to spend. And that had to be passed by the parliament. That's how parliaments, modern forms, started taking shapes. Now I move on to 21st century. Now what we have is, as the state becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, then starting from the French Revolution and many other revolutions, American Revolution, of course, a very important contribution in establishing democracy throughout the world. One of the things that it did was states had become too powerful. And then there had to be a way to tame the state. And to tame the state, three branches of government started taking shapes. As I told you earlier, Parliament was there, and some form of judiciary was also there. And then one of the things that came after French Revolution, American Revolution, was very strong three branches of the government. Executive, that's headed by the Prime Minister or President. Parliament. Parliament basically is the place where the government has to go to get its budget, government has to go to get its laws, government has to go to ratify whatever agreement it enters with any other country. And then the judiciary which upholds the rights of people, civil rights, civil liberties. That's how three branches of government started coming into being, became more stronger. One of the most important facets of American Revolution was American Revolution recognized that branches of government should be separated from one another. So three distinct branches of government, separation power among three branches of government, and the layers of the government also. Federal government, state government, and local government. And if you now compare with what we have today, we have now federal system, which has central government. There is one central government. There are 7 provincial government, and there are 753 village and town governments. So 3 layers of government, 3 branches of government. We have parliament, we have government, which is commonly known, executive branch of government, that's commonly known as government, and then judiciary. So executive, legislative, judiciary. And so what people wanted assured was, this was good, but not good enough. So there are certain fundamental factors that had to be assured in democracy. So now if we look at our constitution, in the preamble of our constitution, we basically write some of the most important principles of our constitution. I'll just explain those fundamental features, basic tenets of our democracy. First, competitive multi-party democracy. So in our system, there's not just one party, there could be many parties. There are about 100 parties registered in the election commission at the central level. In the provincial level also, there are many, some parties are only in the provincial level, some parties are only at the federal level, some are at both provincial level and the federal level. And there is a competition among parties. Whichever party wins the election will get to form the government. One party might win the government at the central level, the other might win at the provincial level, many others might win at the local level. That's precisely what we have today. And then on the system of governance, we call it democratic system of governance. Here, one of the most important things that we recognize, though it's not written in preamble, but it's written somewhere in the constitution, is we are a plural society. Plural society meaning we recognize the diversity in our country. In terms of religion, we are diverse. In terms of caste, we are diverse. In terms of ethnic group, we are diverse. In terms of culture, we are diverse. In terms of language, we are diverse. There's so many things that sets us apart from each other. But at the same time, we're trying to find unity in the diversity that this country has. So one of the greatest principles of democracy would be it recognizes that the society is plural. There are variety of aspirations, not that everybody has the same aspiration. Your aspiration might be different from mine. Mine might be different from somebody else's. And there is a very civilized, non-violent way of bringing out your aspirations and then articulating those aspirations, fighting for those aspirations. and trying to convince others that these aspirations are very important aspirations which should bind everybody in the society. So these are the features that that plural society does have, and that's also one of the fundamental principles that we have recognized in our constitution. Then we talk about civil liberties. Then we talk about fundamental rights and human rights. I'm sure you've heard a lot about the basic rights of human being. One of the things we recognize is we are bestowed with rights, and very differently from many other constitutions in the world. American Constitution is very distinct. It recognizes that the source of Constitution is fundamental right of the people. The Constitution cannot write anything that takes away the fundamental rights of the people. That's the principle. We do not recognize that as such, but we do recognize that our fundamental rights, our human rights, our civil liberties are inalienable. Though they are not the source of the Constitution, but Constitution guarantees that nobody can take that away. Courts cannot take that away, government cannot take that away, parliament cannot take that away. These are the rights that individual is bestowed with. When a child is born, the child is bestowed with all these rights. So that's another principle that our Constitution recognizes. And another important thing is periodic election. So right now we have communist party's government at the central level. The government is elected by the parliament. Government is accountable to the parliament. So government is elected by parliament, is accountable to parliament. And if the parliament does not like the government, parliament can remove the government, can remove the prime minister. So accountability is to the parliament. Parliament gets re-elected every 5 years. So we are already into 2 years, almost 2.5 years of our term. In little more than 2.5 years, there will be another periodic election. Whichever party gets elected gets to form the government. So that's another fundamental feature of the election. Democracy. In democracy, you cannot say that I was elected 10 years back. Until I'm removed by some force, I will still stay in the government. That is not acceptable. Constitution guarantees that there will be periodic elections. Many countries follow 5-year term. There are many other countries also which have 4-year term, and some of the countries do follow 2-term limits, meaning if you are elected chief executive, meaning prime minister or the president, you can become prime minister or president for 2 consecutive terms, but beyond that you cannot become president or the prime minister. We don't recognize that. We do not have term limit. Then another fundamental feature of democracy that we recognize is press freedom. The press freedom is basically, press should be able to write what it thinks is right. Press should not be coerced or forced to divulge the source of information that it has. This protection is provided to press so that government cannot use its force. Government cannot use its power to silence the opposition, to silence the people, to silence the press. Press freedom, unfettered press freedom, is one of the fundamental features of democracy. Another important facets of our democracy is independent judiciary. Independent judiciary and impartial judiciary. So judiciary is not accountable to parliament, it's not accountable to government, it's very independent. In some ways it's accountable to parliament, but it's not accountable to the government. So law is made by the parliament. Based on that law, courts decides the cases, and based on that they provide justice to people. So if somebody is aggrieved, he or she can go to the court and say this is the law this country has, and this law is not honored. This person has taken my rights away. This person has impinged upon my fundamental rights or impinged upon my property rights. And then the person can go, the aggrieved person can go to the court and then ask for the justice. That's another fundamental feature. And last but not the least is rule of law. So it's not the rule by individual. Rule is based on law. So even if you are prime minister, even if you are a member of parliament, even if you are a minister, you are chief minister of a province or mayor of a city, you cannot say that I'm a mayor, so I will do what I would like to do. You cannot do that. You have to rule based on what the law says, and rule based on how the law says you can rule. That's the most important and fundamental facets of democracy. These are the basic features of our democracy. So Franklin Delano Roosevelt once said there are 4 fundamental freedoms. So I mean, if you just put all these facets of our democracy together, that probably also will give us 4 important features that I think are fundamental to any democracy. First, freedom from fear. An environment should be guaranteed that nobody has to fear from anybody else. As long as he or she does what is in her or his best interest, he should not be fearful of anybody. He should be able to pursue his career, his life, his liberty, can pursue happiness. Nobody can take away that right from the individual. So freedom from fear is a fundamental freedom. Second would be freedom from want. And here you can say government has to guarantee, the state has to guarantee that nobody would die of hunger, nobody would die of scarcity. That is something very fundamental. Some of the poor countries like ours, we probably have a lot of work to do before we really get to a stage where freedom from want is 100% guaranteed. Though our law, our constitution says that we have food security, right to food, but still there are many places where poverty is so rampant that people probably would not get enough to eat. Malnutrition is still a problem in our country. But that's the second most fundamental principles of democracy. Third would be freedom of expression. Freedom of expression is very important because if you do not know, if you do not get to say that you have not gotten what you wanted to, if you do not get to say that I'm hurting, then there's no guarantee that democracy is there, because otherwise the ruler would just claim that everybody is happy, everybody is very content, everybody is doing what they want to do, everybody is moving in the direction of prosperity. But to guarantee that the prosperity is there, to guarantee that there's people are happy, they have to have the right to say that no, I'm hurting, no, I'm hurting. And based on this principle of freedom of expression, the freedom of press is derived. And this is third most fundamental freedom any democracy should have and should guarantee. And fourth is freedom of worship. Whoever you think is your God, you should be able to, without any restriction, practice your religion. And even if you are an atheist, if you do not follow any religion, you should be free not to go with your conviction. So freedom of worship, freedom of religion is the fourth most fundamental freedom in democracy. To sum up what I have said so far, yes, in today's Nepal, we have a very good constitution that provides the foundation for building democracy, for building prosperity, but still, because our economy is so small, we are still one of the poorer countries in the world. There are many things that we need to do. And if we put our acts together, if we put our resources together, resources meaning the water resource that we have, the potential in tourism that we have, if we modernize our agriculture, if we develop our service sector, we can build the bricks of prosperity. We can build a huge building that we can call prosperity based on the bricks of agriculture, bricks of industry, bricks of trade, bricks of water resources, bricks of tourism, bricks of many other things to build the building of prosperity. And for that, I guess one of the fundamental things we need to do is people should be able to say what they like and what they do not like. If people feel that they are not happy with the government, they should have the right to say, no, I don't like it. People should be free to say that and should not be fearful of the government. That's another important thing. And third is, we also as a citizen need to recognize that what we want to say, we should be able to say it peacefully. That freedom to speak out peacefully should be one of the most important features of democracy. We have problems, and especially as the whole world is witnessing the corona or COVID-19 crisis, our economy probably will shrink. Once our economy shrinks, which already is a small economy, then it will be enormously difficult for us to get back to the normal after the pandemic is over. So once the pandemic, sustaining ourselves during the pandemic, staying safe during the pandemic, keeping our friends and families safe during the pandemic, and once the pandemic is over, then getting back to work, and then getting back to a situation where we can take our economy back, and then again start moving ahead in the direction of peace, prosperity, and happiness. Probably would be the greatest test of our democracy. This is an evolving concept. No society is a perfect democracy. Even the best examples of democracies are still not perfect. We are far from perfect. We're moving in that direction, albeit very slowly. We all need to be together. So, I mean, if we.
Namaste, sir. And I am Rizul, and I watched the full debate of you with Arnab Goswami related to the border of Nepal, and I was very proud with you. And how do you think will Nepal will take the land of Limpiadhura, Lipulek, etc.? Your perspective.
Your question is very important, and then again, I mean, you're a small child, but still, I mean, you've shown me respect, you've shown me affection. I'm really grateful to you for that, and standing by me when I spoke for my country in that interview. I really feel grateful to you. On how we can get our land back, one of the first and fundamental thing that we need to do is, I mean, sending a message to the entire world that Nepal is one and together in this one. Every Nepali is together in this idea of getting its land back. Is very important. Once we give that message, then I guess the real test of our wisdom. We have to be wise enough. I mean, this will test our patience. This will test our skill. This will test our diplomacy. This will test our perseverance. And we should all be willing to do that. We should be wise enough, and I certainly will encourage Prime Minister. We will support Prime Minister, but encourage Prime Minister to be wise, to say things that would not unnecessarily provoke anybody, would not unnecessarily provoke our neighbor, but at the same time, we have to give a very clear signal to our neighbor that we have a resolve and will to take our land back. There should be absolutely no confusion about that. But at the same time, we want to live with our neighbor peacefully. So that message has to go, and that message has to go without provocation. And we should be very wise and diplomatic and very determined to get our land back.
Namaskar, sir. I am Anish Upreti. My question is about burning border issue. Government of Nepal has published our official map. What should be the roles of we students and youths to support the nation in this issue?
I guess, I mean, you should just raise your voice wherever you are. From there, you should raise your voice. I mean, I do not want you to come out on the street and say solidarity. That's not needed. Tomorrow the constitutional amendment will be done. I don't know if you know this. I mean, the emblem of our country has the map in it. There are many countries which do not have map of their country in their emblem, but we have. India does not have its map in its emblem. We have our country's map in the emblem, and in the constitution that we wrote, we by mistake put the wrong map in the emblem. So I mean, now we have to take that old map back and then bring the new put the new map in the emblem, and that the emblem is defined in the Schedule 3 of the Constitution. So tomorrow, Parliament's going to amend the Constitution, and then we'll come up with the new emblem, which has the new map of Nepal. So that's a very important and significant step in that direction, because that's sending a clear message to the world, to India, to other friends in the world, that Nepal is very determined to get our land back. And to to answer your question directly, please stay very determined, stay confident, wish that we as political leaders will be wise enough and will rise up to the challenge that's there. Beyond that, I would not, give a lot of pressure to you guys. You guys just keep on doing what you've been doing. Go, do what a student will do. Study hard. Try to learn as much as you can. Try to keep yourself aware of what's happening within the country, what's happening throughout the world, and do what you would do normally. And that certainly would give us enough strength to, and enough a good message to rise up to the challenge and be wise enough to deal with our enemy and find a diplomatic solution to the border issue that we have with the neighbor.
Thank you so much, sir. I indeed believe you did really inspire a lot of us here. So I think the next question would be asked by Sierra. Please, you have the floor.
Go ahead.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. I'm Shira. And as I grow up, even I want to involve in politics and make Nepal better. So my curiosity is, what were the qualities and traits that you had in your student life that made you involve in politics?
I do not know. If I would encourage you to join politics, but that's a decision you have to take. You are not there yet. Right now, you can take interest in politics, keep yourself abreast as to what's happening in the country, keep yourself abreast about how the government's functioning, how judiciary functions, how other democratic institutions do function. That's a part of an academic or a pursuit. You can do that. And the other part of the question was how I started out in politics. I joined politics while I was a student. At that time, there used to be election in the schools also. Back in 1968, I was a sixth grader, and I ran for office for the student union of my school. Won the election. That's long time back. 68 is how many years? 52 years back. I was very young. Your age are probably what grader are you? I was a sixth grader when I became a member of the student union. So that's how I started out. And the inspiration was that same year BP Koirala was released from the prison. BP came to Biratnagar, and that was like, my environment in my home was such that the people, my father, others used to talk about BP Koirala, about his being imprisoned for 8 years. The guy who was our first elected prime minister, the system was taken away and Panchayat system was introduced. BP and other leaders were in prison they were in prison for 8 years. He was released, came to Biratnagar for a brief while in 68. And seeing him, I went to the airport to welcome him. I was a young kid, sixth grader, and then I felt like I need to run for the election, or the student union election. I did that, and then slowly was involved through different layers of student election, student politics. In 1979, I became vice president of Nepal Student Union, national vice president. 1981, I retired from the student politics and then joined party's regular politics. And in 1989, I went to the US. 87, I went to the US, stayed in the US for 9 years, did my PhD from the US, taught there for 3 years at New York University, came back in 1996, and then became Prime Minister's advisor. So I started out young as a student activist, inspired by BP Koirala, and continued that along that path. And I am where I am today. Having said that, I will still encourage you to gather more knowledge, be more alert about political activities in the country, be more alert about how governance is done. without making a commitment that you will be in politics. Politics will be your profession. It's still, you're still young to decide on that. And take your time. Take your time. Just be aware, be abreast of the governance. But there will come a time when you'll find out whether you want to join politics or you want pursue some other profession and still take keen interest in politics. So that option will always be there. But still, you're still too young to decide whether you want to pursue politics as a profession. Thank you.